Were Celtics stolen outside home? The play that changed versus Knicks. Pause everything. If you are Celtics or love the NBA, you need to see this now. Away from home, the game was on fire, and one final move became a discussion across the country. Was it strategy, a refereeing error, or theft? In seconds, I'll show you the decisive frame, the exact context, and why Boston left outraged without fluff. Before running, answer quickly. Would you call a foul here? Think carefully, because your answer may change after analysis. Prepared? Take a deep breath, and come with me to the move that could have changed the Celtics versus Knicks. If this thing already got you, send like now and subscribe to the channel. This helps me a lot to bring hot analysis every game. Activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos and comment, was it a foul or theft? Stay with me until the end because I'm going to show you the angle that almost no one saw and the tactical reading play-by-play. Let's go. Let's take a deep breath and talk calmly, but without losing frankness. There are nights in sport when the score is just the surface. Underneath it, there is effort, organization, decision-making, collective mentality. What we saw at the opening of the 2025-2026 season was an uncomfortable portrait of the Boston Celtics. Little control over their own emotions, poor execution, difficulty in reacting quickly to the opponent's punches. The loss to the New York Knicks wasn't just a fluke stumble, it was a high-volume alert. And like any self-respecting siren, it asks for attention, not panic. That's what I propose here. Look at the game without excuses, identify what is actually happening, and at the same time, recognize the points of light that appear when almost everything goes dark. I want you to accompany me as if we were side by side, leaning over the table, mentally reviewing each moment. No gratuitous dramatization, no empty euphoria. We will tailor an analysis that respects your fan intelligence and that also maintains the sense of urgency that the moment demands. Let's start with the essentials. Control. Basketball games are often decided by micro-decisions. A poorly managed possession turns into 3 points on the other side. A rebound that escapes due to lack of positioning opens the door for the opponent's sequence. It was like that again and again in the second quarter. 3 long unanswered Knicks runs, 11-0, 17-0, and 12-0, didn't happen by chance. They are the consequence of an uncomfortable combination. Poor shot choices, little ball protection, slow defensive return, and lack of organized rebound coverage. It's a set. When a team repeats this pattern every few minutes, something structural is failing. This something has many names. Call it focus, call it consistency, call it a commitment to the little things, the same ones that rarely make it into the post-game highlights but win championships in May and June. The Knicks didn't need to invent anything revolutionary. All it took was energy, discipline, and insistence on what was working. Attacking the offensive board, making mistakes, accelerating in transition. On the other side, the Celtics oscillated between haste and indecision, as if they were always half a step behind the reality of the game. The number that best symbolizes this story is the offensive rebound. Even if you question whether it was 21 or 23, the truth lies in the contrast. The Knicks invaded the Celtics' clutch with conviction, while Boston barely managed to offer any resistance. Rebounding is not just height or impulsion. It's reading and positioning. It's body touching body, space protection, communication. When all this disappears, the opponent finds new life in each missed shot. The feeling is that each defense needs to be repeated twice, and with each repetition, confidence disappears. It wasn't just in the bottle that things fell apart. The defensive transition, one of the pillars of any team that sets out to improve rhythm, almost didn't appear. 0 counterattacking points in the first half and just 2 in the entire game are not isolated statistics. They are a mirror of what happened to collective energy. To run, you need to defend with purpose, collect the rebound, and make the first decision assertively. That night, the 3 stages were faltering. Here comes the question that cannot be ignored. Who holds the line when things go off script? When the score weighs and the gym pushes the opponent, there are 2 possible responses: technical leadership and emotional leadership. Technical leadership is the talent that creates a clean pitch when nothing is flowing. Emotional leadership is the gesture that reorganizes the team, calling a higher light screen, calming the pass, communicating changes in defense, demanding a return. When a player becomes the first choice, he needs to provide both types of leadership, not just points. This goes for any star. And yes, it also applies to those who now bear the responsibility of initiating actions with Tatum out of the picture. The night of those who led the attack was, to say the least, a paradox all. On the one hand, moments of quality emerged, infiltrations that break the first line, the ability to create advantages. On the other hand, the old Achilles heel appeared, exposed ball handling, hasty reading in contact, forced shots in traffic. 7 wastes are not a detail. There are 7 opportunities returned. In detail-level matches, returns of this size are costly, and when the reference experiences a bumpy game, the satellites need to shine. There was brightness, yes, but unevenly. Sam Hauser lit up the perimeter with a hot hand and accurate shot timing, but the rest of the group outside oscillated at the opposite extreme. It is not acceptable for the production of 3 points to plummet to such a degree when the opposing defense compacts the box waiting for hasty decisions. When the drop in performance comes together with low quality in shot selection and a lack of balance in the attack, the sum is almost always cruel. In command of the perimeter, Peyton Pritchard showed organization, controlled the pace in passes, and protected the ball. However, when the shot doesn't fall, defenses adjust the distance, extend the help, and shorten the passing lines. This forces the driver to find other ways to impact, pressure on the ball, cuts without the ball to confuse exchanges, building angles that take the opponent out of comfort. The point guard who wants to be a starter needs to produce an advantage even on cold nights. The good news is that game vision and courage to accelerate exist. The task now is to make this impact inevitable, not circumstantial. In the internal sector, the evaluation goes through 2 layers. The first is to recognize absences and physical limitations of the night. The second is to isolate what is cyclical from what is structural. Neemias Queta offers body, presence, disposition. However, rebounding is a collective habit. There is no point in one fighting for 2 when the entire team takes a step back. The bottle is a space of shared responsibility. Wingers and guards need to close the edge of the area, place their body between the opponent and the ball, help the pivot to clear the shot. When this doesn't happen, the pivot's rebounding statistics become an easy and unfair scapegoat. There is, however, one chapter that deserves to be highlighted with considered enthusiasm: Hugo Gonzalez. And here I ask permission for a more intimate parenthesis. In games like this, when the context seems to drag everyone down, it's rare to see a young person embrace the chaos and turn it into fuel. Hugo did just that. It wasn't about flashy numbers. It was about impact. It was about entering, taking a deep breath, understanding what was missing, and delivering what was within your reach. Energy, reading, contestation, courage. If you follow basketball closely, you recognize the rarity. A freshman who arrives and becomes immediately useful in something that doesn't depend on a designed scheme. Pressure on the ball, denied passing line, disciplined lateral movement, active hands without resorting to the anxiety of unnecessary touches. We had, in the first 21 minutes of our career, a collection of tiny successes that, when added together, turned into something big. 2 shots with the non-dominant hand, precise cuts to offer an angle to the ball carrier, movement without the ball that opens up the opponent's crease, and, above all, a mentality that does not shrink in the face of physical contact. I have special respect for players who understand that technical effort is as important as physical effort. Hugo read shot trajectories, attacked the attack board, gave up the role of statistics to embrace the invisible role of being in the right place. This is training, of course, but it is also a vocation. And vocation, when it finds context, tends to blossom quickly. It's too early to make bigger statements, but it's not too early to recognize the raw material. Game sense, defensive commitment, immediate added value. For a pick at the end of the first round, it's an asset that changes the rotation and changes the mood in the locker room. This type of piece also makes the coach's life easier. On nights when the rotation needs oxygen, having a defender willing to shorten the court, to bother the opposing dribbler right at the exit, to fight for each space as if it were a final move, all of this is gold. And that affects colleagues. The game has emotional dimensions that are contagious. When a young man comes in and turns every possession into an opportunity to do right, veterans tend to respond. It seems little, but this is how, silently, a team finds its identity again. And speaking of identity, it's worth pausing to frame expectations. The question, is this a playoff team? It is not mere provocation. It serves to guide the conversation about priorities. A playoff team needs to master two routines, limiting its own mistakes and punishing the opponent's mistakes. Boston tonight failed at both. He gave away wasted points and didn't convert enough volume when he caused the Knicks to make mistakes. The solution, is not born in a miraculous move. It is born in a calendar of simple corrections, repeated every day, tirelessly. What fixes? Some are immediate. Transition defense, 5 agile steps, head turning to locate the ball and shooters, first line communicating who gets the ball and who protects the basket. Without that, any athletic team finds itself on the open road. Control of the defensive rebound, box out with intention, wingers dropping to close the semicircle, guard taking half a step back to cover the splashed ball. The first possession starts with the body, not the ball. Shot selection. If the legs are heavy and the hand is cold, the ball needs to touch more people. The light screen needs to gain an angle. The infiltration needs to have a safety option. 3-pointers at the start of the clock without an advantage created are invitations to the opponent's sequence. Half-court ball protection. 2 hands dribbling on contact, spin used as a last resort, reading the blind side of the help, timing the pass to punish the crease. This reduces waste and prevents the opponent's long runs. Conscious rotation. Minutes distributed to stimulate internal competitiveness and reward those who deliver the little things. Players like Ugo raise the rotation floor. Using this feature courageously changes the dynamics of the game. None of these points require tactical invention. It requires discipline. It requires collective commitment. It requires, above all, understanding that the season is not defined in October, but the culture is. If the team normalizes indifference to detail now, when the hard part of the calendar arrives, there will be no foundation. If, on the other hand, the group decides that every possession matters, the group begins to rely on stable habits. Resilient teams are not built with locker room speeches. They are built by repeating the same successes until they become a reflex. There is also the human side of all this. Leaders need to speak the same language. On the court, this language translates into signs: the hand that calls for the highest light screen, the gesture that asks for calm, the look that demands a return, the touch on the chest that takes the blame for a late coverage. Outside of it, it becomes a responsibility. Watching video one more time, training boring fundamentals, reviewing defensive communication with the second unit, taking a colleague out to talk about a specific adjustment. The culture that produces serial victories has less to do with what you say on the microphone and more with what you do in silent training. That said, it's fair to recognize individual merits, even on bad nights. Derek White, for example, almost never makes selfish decisions. When the shot doesn't fall, he continues to offer organization, reading help and passing angles. In healthy teams based on ball circulation, this profile is essential. In pressured groups, he is the snap that restores serenity. It's funny how sometimes a guard's best contribution isn't the difficult basket, but the simple pass made at the right second. That pass changes a possession, that possession changes confidence, and confidence rebuilds a night. It is also necessary to look at the medical and physical part with maturity. Relevant absences change roles, change spacing, and reconfigure defensive responsibilities. The fans miss the volume of points. The coach misses the invisible gravities, the respect an opponent has for a shooter, the attention a defender gives a dangerous cutter, the fear of leaving a rim protector free. When key pieces leave, colleagues need to collectively build new sources of gravity. And this doesn't happen overnight. It requires repetition, mutual trust, and a clear plan. A clear plan involves reconfiguring the half-court attack to reduce waste and increase shooting quality. This means using more 45 cuts when the strong side collapses, triggering handoffs to take the ball out of the hands of the first option when the clock is low, exploiting pick and roll with short roll reading to punish help from the opposite side. These are solutions that, when implemented with patience, lower the demand for individual heroism. The game belongs to the team again, and no, I'm not advocating shyness. I'm advocating intelligent aggression, that which arises from created advantage, not from haste. There is a profound difference between wanting it a lot and wanting it right. Wanting a lot tramples the pass. Wanting it right takes a step back, sees the defensive positioning, and chooses the moment to attack. Great scorers live on the edge between these two worlds. When they master this limit, they carry entire teams. Let's return to the theme that opens the night sky, Hugo Gonzalez. What excites me most about it is not the cut of a game, but the type of resources it offers. Energy that does not depend on exploitation, competitiveness that does not depend on how many balls fall, defensive reading that improves with repetition. If all this remains, even when scouting comes, if we start studying their patterns, we will have an essential guardian for season and, later, playoff games. Players like this change series because they reduce the team's margin for error. They don't win games alone, but they make the teammate who decides have to decide 2 or 3 times less. I also want to highlight the importance of recognizing opportunities in the rotation. On nights when scoring stagnates, it's worth making space for those who offer defensive elasticity and cut cycles of opposing runs. If an athlete is not putting pressure on the ball, the change needs to happen on the spot. If pick-and-roll coverage fails in the same zone for 3 possessions, the fit adjustment cannot wait for halftime. Modern basketball rewards those who act quickly, and it is in this rhythm that a young man like Hugo can be key. He gives the coach the possibility of changing the tone of the game in 2 minutes. Now, about the burning question, is this a playoff team? I respond with another, what identity does this team sustain when things go wrong? If the answer 3 weeks from now is, we compete in every possession, we don't focus on the details, and we reduce waste, the journey changes direction. If, on the contrary, the image continues to be that of a group that switches on and off in blocks of 5 minutes, the prognosis becomes cloudy. The NBA does not forgive instability. The games pile up, the trips drain energy, and only those who have solid convictions to support themselves survive when the air disappears. One last reflection before closing. The fan has the right to demand, and it is healthy. I only ask that the demand be accompanied by memory. Winning projects are not born in a straight line. They build themselves by facing the worst versions of themselves. It's uncomfortable, without a doubt, but it is in this discomfort that permanent adjustments are born. The mission, therefore, is to transform an ugly night into material for study and action. It's not enough to mourn. It is necessary to act in training, correct on video, line up behind the scenes, and hold people accountable on the court. If this cycle sets in, victories will come as a consequence. For my part, I leave this match with 2 certainties. The first, the problems are not mystical, they are trainable. Hit rebounds with technique and disposition. Protect the ball with habit and reading. The shot is best selected with patience and repetition. The second, there's a real spark in the cast, and it goes by the name Hugo Gonzalez. Polishing this piece calmly and intelligently can speed up your return to the trail. If you've made it this far, I appreciate your company. This space exists to treat the game with respect, praise with arguments, criticize with responsibility, and above all, build a conversation that adds value. I want to hear from you. What adjustment is non-negotiable for the next game? Who needs more minutes? What cannot be repeated under any circumstances? Leave your vision with the same honesty that I tried to bring here. And yes, stick with me this season. There will be ups and downs. There will be praise and demands. There will be, I hope, the rebirth of a competitive standard that honors the shirt, because that's what it's about. Not denying the ugly night, but making it count. Those who learn quickly come back sooner. Whoever returns earlier gets further. Let's measure this team by its next steps. And when the bell rings again, I hope it will be to announce a team that is more attentive, more collective, and more faithful to what it intends to be. Until then, organize your heart, trust the correction process, and celebrate with all the heart every minute that the right basketball appears. And when that right basketball comes from the energy of a young man willing to defend every inch of the court, recognize it. Many great comebacks are born exactly like that. If this match was a tremor, prepare for the earthquake. The season is open, the mistakes are mapped, and every adjustment from now on could redesign the Celtics' destiny. If you want to understand where the game turns, how rotation choices weigh, and how execution turns frustration into results, don't stop here. Enter the Celtics Analysis playlist now. There, I break down every detail, tactical play-by-play readings, defensive coverage corrections, ways to increase use on the perimeter, minute management, the real impact of young people, and practical plans for the next match. It is the space where we transform numbers into decisions and decisions into victories. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and make this playlist your official follow-up to the 2025-2026 season. Marathon Celtics analysis and come build, step by step, the turnaround that separates promise from protagonism. Don't wait for the score to tell the story for you. Press play on Celtics analysis, and let's turn this season around together.